Hello, in this video I'm going to carry on where I left off looking through Shiloh's tweets. June 2011, after having seizures in my sleep unknowingly from the stress, you finished your daily routine with me and after, in the shower, told me I was clinically obese and you couldn't pick me up, so I had to lose weight. So he's told her she's clinically obese, which is obviously incredibly rude and disrespectful, and also untrue. I mean, we can see what she looked like at the time, and she wasn't obese in any way. It's interesting how he said that he needed to be able to pick her up. I mean, that just makes you think of a child, that she wasn't his child anymore. So he's going to have to sort that out and make sure that she's small enough that he can pick her up when he wants to. It also makes me think of an object, and that's how she's been treated, like a kind of sex doll. That you know, even the list of rules that he can put makeup on the sex doll when he wants to video it, and then take the makeup off. It's his own doll, he doesn't want anyone else to want it. That's the kind of vibe I get, and again it comes back again with having to pick her up. The stress was causing her to have seizures, so that shows how extreme it was. You continued to confess that you preferred much skinnier, specifically Asian descent looking girls. I had my first grand mal seizure after you left me in the shower to cry and hyperventilate. This caused 3 years of memory loss. You filmed the results. So he's been mentally torturing her and telling her about the kind of woman he prefers. Somebody who she will never look like because they're not even the same race as her. And then when she's crying and she's hyperventilating, so she's extremely emotional, he just leaves her like that. He doesn't try to comfort her. It sounds like he hasn't apologized for himself or tried to resolve it in any way with her. He's just said these things that he knows are going to really hurt her, and then he has walked away and left her suffering. So this is again him devaluing her, and then the fact that she lost 3 years of memory. I mean, this was a big seizure that she had from all of the stress. So if you think about the emotional energy that she's putting into this relationship, all the tears from, you know, all the pain right from when she got this tattoo and he didn't, from her being outside the room crying while he's masturbating over other women, and you know, if you just think about the amount of emotion that's gone into all of this from her, and then compare that to the energy that he is putting into the relationship, there's a vast difference. And it's not just that there's a difference, but it's inverted, because he's actually getting energy from her pain. That's what he's thriving on, and that's why he's behaving like this, because that's what a narcissist does. You know, narcissistic supply feeds them. So her pain, all of these emotional responses and all of this energy that she's losing, that's what he is living off. That's what's making him feel good and powerful, and that's why he continues to behave in that way. Imagine the power of erasing 3 years of memories from someone's brain. That's what he has managed to do with his abuse. So, I mean, how can you have more control over someone than that? And he then filmed her and put the video on YouTube. he put himself in the position of being the kind person who's looking after this crazy girlfriend. So that he comes across as the saint who is caring for her, and understands this bizarre condition that she has, having just had a seizure. You don't see any evidence in his video that he has abused her and that this seizure happened as a result of that abuse. He says in the video that he answered a question quickly and insensitively, and he doesn't talk about this as an intentional cruel behaviour. So she's left looking like a crazy person for having such an extreme reaction to someone answering in a hurry, and yet clearly that's not what happened. He films her looking around and trying to remember where she is and who he is and what's going on. He shows her these images of her parents and of herself, and she's really confused. And you can tell that he feels very calm, relaxed, in control, and like he's enjoying the situation. And that's because he has all the power. She is behaving like a completely lost, vulnerable person. And she is no threat to him, and he can kind of mother her at that time. If he was somebody who could feel empathy, then he would be terrified of what was happening to his girlfriend. He'd obviously be really worried about her. He'd be calling an ambulance, and none of this would be enjoyable. It would be the complete opposite. He'd be really scared about what was happening to her and if she was ever going to recover. But instead he's filming her, and because this is going to get him lots of attention from the viewers who watch it, and he's casting himself in the role of the sweet, kind caretaker. And that's going to get him lots of positive validation. The police took me to a mental care facility because when Greg did not let me call my mother to come to get me from Tacoma, I had threatened suicide while he was on the phone with police. They put me in a white concrete room with no windows, no bed, and no inside door handle. July 2011, you wanted me to stay living in the house as your friend and broke up with me. That night you wouldn't let me sleep in the bedroom, and like many nights, tried to lock me out of it because I was crying while you were trying to sleep. This makes me think of a time when one of my cats was hyper and wide awake in the middle of the night, sort of jumping up and down, and I couldn't sleep, so I had to take him out of the room and put him in the living room. And so in the same way, it's like she's being treated as a pet. She's doing something that's inconvenient and that's keeping him awake. But the fact that she's crying is just completely irrelevant. It's just noise to him. So again, there's no empathy, and there's just complete contempt for her. She is, what she's doing, her behaviour, making a noise, is getting in his way, and that's all there is to it. So, and again, to try to lock her out, it's again assuming complete authority, and treating her as if she doesn't even deserve to sleep in the bed. I saw a video of the apartment. There isn't another bed, so that's the only one. And he was trying to make her sleep in the hallway because she was too loud when she was crying because of the abuse. So I mean, we can see that the kind of extreme person he is. So the abuse is just getting more and more extreme, and now it's at a point where she's being treated like an animal, and not even like most people would treat an animal, because if my cat had woken me because he was in pain, then obviously I would have tended to him and not just put him in a different room. So it's just inhumane the way that she's being treated. But even though she can see that he doesn't care at all when she's upset and that he shows complete contempt for her, she hasn't left yet. She's still there. So to be in that position, she must feel that she doesn't deserve more than that. You know, she hopes to get more than that. She hopes that he'll return to appearing to love her again, but she doesn't believe that she deserves it, because if she did, she would know that she doesn't need to accept that behaviour. And I think that by this point, whatever she felt about herself before she met him will have worsened by now. Her self-esteem will have become lower because she has allowed the abuse to happen. So by allowing it, she's proving to herself that she isn't worth more than that. And then once she's proved to herself that she isn't worth more than that, she believes it. So she believes more and more, as she lets the abuse continue, she believes more and more that she isn't worth it. And that's what happens. Although it seems like the abuser might be in control of someone's self-esteem, in reality it's the person at the hands of the abuse who controls that. They lower their own self-esteem by allowing the abuse to continue to happen. I tried to push my way into the door. I had enough. Ripped of my feminine, alone and 18. I would not leave you alone, and I was manic with trying to make you understand and stop. So that's an interesting way that she puts that she was manic with trying to make him understand and stop. So that mania that she's talking about is her being utterly desperate to make him hear her and understand, but the mania, it's a madness that she's describing, and that's because she is divided. The view she has of him is completely divided between seeing him as someone who loves her, the person who love-bombed her and who cares about her, and seeing him as someone who has utter contempt for her and who gets off on her pain even. So that's enough to send someone mad, seeing someone in this really split way. And that's what happens in an abusive relationship, because the person presents a sort of Jekyll and Hyde. So there are these two sides. People stay because they keep wanting to find that other side again. They believe that it's real. And so she believed that what seemed to be love coming from him was real. And so she's so confused that seems to have disappeared and that she can't seem to get it back. And she thinks if she can just explain what's really going on, that she isn't the persecutor, that he is, that then he'll understand and he'll stop abusing her. But what she doesn't realise is that the loving side is fake, that it was never real love, that he was initially infatuated with her because he saw her as a great target, as someone who he could have control over and who could meet his needs, and that the abuse is the real him. And that's what so many people in this situation don't understand, that the abuse is a reflection of who that person is. It's not a mistake, it's not a misunderstanding. It's not something that you can, if you just had better communication, you can sort out with the person, because the person needs to behave like that. They need to behave like a predator, and they need the partner to be their victim. There isn't a misunderstanding that can be resolved, because even if the abuser behaves as if there is, even if he or she is saying things that suggest they've got everything the wrong way round, they're doing that either unconsciously to protect themselves from seeing the truth, or they're doing it intentionally to try to mask the fact that they are abusing you. This is a smear campaign. he has behaved abusively in order to get an emotional reaction from her, and he's done this over and over and over again. And then he's switched between doing that and being loving, and doing that and being loving, so that every time he abuses her, the reaction is getting stronger and stronger as her opinion of him gets more divided and more confused. And then once she's behaving in a way that he thinks people are going to find mad, he calls the police on her and tells her that she's out of her mind, and they believe him. And so she's then put away. This young girl who's 18 years old, has been abused, is really traumatized, and I know that, I'm not even just guessing, because she's said in an interview that even now she is traumatized from what happened years ago with him, several years ago now. So at that point, when she was traumatized, she was put on her own in this concrete room with the police thinking that she was mad. Can you imagine how terrifying that would be? There was no way that she could open the door. She was completely at the mercy of people who believed what this abusive partner had been saying about her. So again, the power that he has, and the energy that he's getting from her, the amount of emotional energy she is still spending on all of these tears, all of this confusion and desperation, absolute desperation, and now everything she's going through, all the terror of being in this police cell. So all of that energy that she's spending, he is sucking it up, and that's what he's living on. That's what's blowing his ego up and making him feel like he's important and he matters. So he is getting off on all of it, and he's telling his audience what's going on, but he's putting it across to them like he has this crazy girlfriend, and he's this really sweet guy who's been kindly trying to help. But at some point you just can't help someone, you know, when they're completely out of their mind. They're better off being in the hands of the police. So he's completely ruining her reputation. So I'm going to leave it here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll continue in the next video.